Richland High School, Class of 1989. Welcome to the official 35th Annual Reunion Podcast, where we talk all things reunion. And now, here's your host, Brian Kirk.
Thank you, Devin. Hey, welcome to the pre-reunion countdown podcast for Richland High School's Class of 89. This is Brian Kirk, and today is April 13th, 2024. We are just 14 weeks away from our 35th reunion, and in this episode, we continue our discussion with four special performers who all shared the stage at RHS. We have Dru Mouser, Kambri Crews, Meredith Lucio, and Jason Kendall. They will let us know what they're working on at the moment, share some advice about getting into the entertainment industry, and of course, share some special highlights from their high school memories. So let's get right into it. Jason, let's start with you. Some of our 89ers may have some kids who have dreams of getting into entertainment. Maybe some of our 89ers want to get into a career themselves, but what advice can you share with our audience?
I would recommend to our 89ers, have your kids, join a group, a troupe, a workshop. Everyone, wants to be an actor, but if everyone could do it, they would. But it is not easy, especially on film. And I think the more you can hone your craft as a film actor now at a young age, will take you on through as far as you want to go. So, that would be my best advice, is just to, be humble, be grateful. Things Mr. Hall taught me, Mr. Hall was really good about giving recognition to all of us on things that we did outside of the circle. So if one of us was given an award at school that day, he would mention it, if he heard about it. He was proud of all of his students and the things they did outside of the theater, because we weren't just there for theater. We were there also to learn and grow. Education was a big deal to him. It was a really big deal. And he taught us how to deal with disappointment. And I think that's what we as, custodians for the youth, whatever you want to call us, or just helping, young comedians like Kambri does, or, Broadway, up and coming, possible producers. And then Dru, sees it every day, people that just come out there and want to jump right in. And Brian, I'm sure in your work as well. But, you need that mentor and that someone who teaches you not the happiness, but also how to deal with the unhappiness of show business.
The rejection.
You know what I mean? Or just all kinds. Not even just rejection. I mean, there's so many. Just when I think I've seen it all, forget it. They throw me another curveball. You just wouldn't believe, especially living in Texas, which is a non-union state. So, there are no really guidelines they have to follow here on how they treat us as actors. And you see why they have these unions in place for stage and for film. If you do any real work on any of these projects, you learn real quick. A famous actor, Tom Hardy, is famous for, he has a quote. He says, when you demand that people start treating you with respect, then they just label you as difficult to work with. And I think that rings true. It's like, you get so much in this business where people just, blow you off or whatever, but you're there to do a job. You deserve respect for your craft, respect for your talent. And anything less is unacceptable. But you also learn to be humble and know the right channels, how to go through your agent and still get the job done so that you're going to get called back for future gigs. Kind of that kind of deal, It's hard to explain. It's a lifetime of work, to figure it all out.
That's good advice too, Jason, about, what you can do to get exposure to it and start getting a taste of it. And even if you don't follow your path into the entertainment industry as a performer or someone associated with the stage or camera, I think that life experience, that stage presence you get, it's definitely helped me because I don't perform anymore on stage. But in the jobs I've had over the years, I performed in front of boards of directors or, in front of a training class of 300 people where I have to command the stage for that one moment to teach them something and hold their attention, give them information they're going to retain and go back and apply it right away. And, going back to the people you work with on stage who can fill that gap, fill the void if someone forgets their lines. And I had a fellow actor named Henry, and he was really good at that. He knew everybody's lines inside and out. So if you messed up yours, he would say it, but in his own character. But it was part of the show. And he doesn't do it anymore. But now he's a trial attorney. And so he's using that same instinct to go back there and be able to speak in front of a jury and say the right things and be able to react quickly to their reactions to things. So he's still performing. What's that?
And speak for his clients.
And speak for his clients. He's still advocating for his clients, but he's staying in character. He's doing everything he can, but there's no audience. The audience is the jury, basically at that point. So that's
the world's a stage.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's right.
It's funny. I've had so many different jobs over the years, and honestly, it's like, oh, now I know as someone who does hire people, like when you hire an actor, they're going to be better than anyone.
That's right.
Because they can act it.
Yeah. And if they've been to college, they know how to not only learn the lines, but they know how to build the set, paint the set, sweep the stage, sell the tickets in the box office, market the film. I mean, before it's over, what can't an actor do is my question.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Kambri, how about you? Do you have any advice you want to share?
Well, I do podcasts about my book every now and then. I'll do interviews or give speeches or whatever. And something I didn't know that there was a career in the arts that was not acting. Like I just knew I want to be a movie star when I grow up. That's what I told my parents when I was like 2-3 years old. They said that I was constantly wanting to perform for them on stage with a hairbrush as a microphone and all that. I want to be a movie star. I want to be a movie star. But I'm not sure that I actually did want to be a movie star. I just knew that I loved performing and being in the arts, but I didn't know as a 2-year-old especially, but even as a teenager, that there was so much that comes into creation of art of all kinds, from writing a book to a theatrical production to a film production and everything. When I was about 10, we were living very, very off the grid and in Montgomery, Texas, south of Dallas-Fort Worth. And I was alone for most of my summers, like literally alone in the woods. And so I would like write and produce and direct these puppet shows. I would create the programs. I would sell tickets and market it to all the kids on the bus and at the school. And then when they would come, I would take the money and I had a concession stand and I'd make popcorn and Kool-Aid. And I'm like, oh my God, that's QED. I have a popcorn machine and I sell Kool-Aid with some liquor in it and stuff. But I do all those things. I didn't know that I was doing the thing that I wanted to do back when I was a kid. So I'm think like, yes, it's fun and glamorous and everything to be on stage. And I just performed 2 nights ago and I do love it, but I like creating art of all kinds. Like I watercolor, ice skating, I think is art on ice. It's dancing and choreography. And some of the ice skaters that I've met, their artistic ability, it boggles the mind that they're able to do this and be athletes all at the same time. We have a rotating art gallery here and a bookshop and book events. There's so much that goes into making art, and you can have a career in the arts. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be rich and famous, and that's always the cherry on the cake or pie or cupcake, whatever. What is it? The cherry on top. But yeah, like my husband has had all sorts of levels of fame, and he's on the the downhill, as an aging man. But it's fun when you get the recognition and the stardom that comes with it and everything, but that's certainly not what drives us at all. And yeah.
Thank you.
I think I would add that study always, find, like Jason was saying, find your pods and your groups, be a part of a esprit de corps, do improv, get study with as many, coaches that you can, learn film if you want to do that. But I think also find something else to do too, because there's a lot of downtime and the industry's changed a lot. And I've watched it, and I'm sure Jason can, agree here. We've watched so much happen in the past 30 years. It's just changed and transformed. It's constantly, and it's going to keep changing with AI, and who knows what the future holds with all that, But, instead of wanting to be an influencer, want to tell stories, want to change the world. Find a story that's going to impact someone and tell it, play it, be it, do it. Do the music for it. Like Kambri was saying, there's so many ways to tell that story and be involved in it. And, I think one of the things I love most about acting is when you're on set, there's this energy and there's this cohesiveness and there's this unity and there's this it's 14-hour days, sometimes 6-7 days a week. And things happen and it creates this magic. It creates this thread where we all are on the same page to get this job done. And it's so exciting and it's so fun and it's so thrilling and it's anguish and it's elation and it's all these highs and lows and it's work. And you got to know your craft. You got to know your lines, and they don't tell you what to do. You got to know what to do. And, there's no one there to hold your hand, and you got to just be strong and have tough skin. But in all of that and all the lessons and all the stuff, you're telling a story, and you got to find the passion in that. You got to want to tell that story. For me, let's change the world by telling these stories. So if we can make the world a better place with art, it all starts with the artist. We're the rebels. We're the shit stirrers.
It's not a fake it till you make it type gig either. I mean, I've had so many people call me over the years because, when you tell people you're an actor, they get this glazed donut look in their eye and they start asking you the dumbest questions that you would never ask someone of their profession. Never in a million years. Like, well, how much money do you make doing that?
Oh, God.
Or, well, how does that even work? Well, I want to do that. How do I do that? So I get a lot of crazy. Yeah. What have you been in? Where would I have seen you? So I would tell people to, start with education and go, and I'll refer them to a class, and they'll go for 2 days, one weekend, and take this acting for camera 101 class. And then they'll call me back and be like, wow, that's really hard work.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do that. I'm like, oh, well, that's okay. You don't have to do it. But I'm glad you appreciate that it's hard work and that you see that now and you realize, what goes into it. And that's just the scratching of the surface. But Dru makes an excellent point. Have something else in your quiver of arrows to hustle. Whatever it is. And if it's related to the arts, even better. If you're an 89er and you have a child or grandchild, or some of us have grandchildren now, that wants to get into show business.
Liar. Lies.
He said that like he does, by the way.
You just call. Just reach out to one of us 89ers and we'll help you the best that we can. Because children getting into it is a whole other ball of wax. And I have some contacts there as well that I could help guide people toward. But, it's an investment and you have to be ready to invest in your future in acting is not cheap to get into. Dru can tell you, there's headshots, there's agents, there's managers, there's publicists, there's websites, travel expenses.
I pay like $25 per audition.
Yeah, and then there's that, I know people that have
we have a studio here that people are doing there's Zoom auditions or their self-tapes, and the self-tape thing, you have to edit
you
it.
Make a fortune by just
terrible. I know, but it's terrible that you are now required to learn. It's not a good direction at all.
We do everything.
I would literally be in my garage with my backdrop that I'd have to put up myself because it's huge. Put up my camera, do my light, beg someone who had 30 minutes to spend with me, put them on FaceTime, and then fake an eyeline.
Yeah.
And your hair and makeup. Make an eyeline to do an audition in my garage. It was a nightmare.
And do your hair and makeup and all that. The time and energy and the skill. Yeah. I know we're talking a lot about acting, but I do know that a lot of people, stand-up comedy, I know for 25 years I've been doing it here in the city. And my husband is a comedian and a working comedian. He'll be in Vegas next. Oh, well, I think it'll already have aired or won't have aired. Yeah, he's in Vegas this week, I think, or next week.
Hilarious.
Yeah. And during the pandemic, we produced a special that's on Amazon Prime. It's his 5th comedy album. And, but this one was almost like a documentary, and I'm making a cameo in it. So there's that. Yeah. And so does QED. But yeah, with stand-up comedy, it's not different in what Dru was saying about finding your club, your group. I always say just hit the open mics, get as much stage time as humanly possible, and you will connect with other the same level as you, other comedians that are same level as you, and you will find your little troupe, your little clique, and you can help. Rising tides raise all ships. When I first opened Ochi's Lounge, which was in the early to mid 2000s. You were talking about Pete Holmes, Kumail Nanjiani, Zach Galifianakis, Colin Jost. They were all the regulars at my first club. And you see where they all are now, and they're all still connected, and they all still elevate and promote each other and are on each other's shows and whatnot. So you'll find your group and you will all rise together. So yeah, hit the stage, find your group, support each other, and lean on each other. And yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah, Kambri, hearing you talk about that, it reminds me of Tom Jones. And in that show, there were some fight scenes, sword fights, and David Michael Hall, the director, brought in a specialist to help us with that, with the stage combat. And I remember it was not just learning how to take a punch or throw a punch, but also how to give a transfer of energy from one actor to another actor. And it seems like that's a big part of acting, is transferring energy from one person to the next.
Yeah, learning pratfalls and stuff. And this is where Shay with the Highwaymen, he had a one-up on us. He was already very much into clowning and acrobatics and everything, and had much more body awareness. But I learned how to pratfall and stage combat, the fighting and punching and all that. It was tremendous experience. That was great.
Yeah. So let's hear now from each of you. What are some of the projects that you're working on now that you're really jazzed about?
Jason, you're working with Taylor Swift. Tell us about it.
Well, yeah, it'll be probably early in the fall, maybe late summer. But, Taylor Sheridan is working on several new projects. They're filming here in Fort Worth, and I'll be releasing more information as I can as we get closer to that, probably in the middle of the summer.
Can you say what project it is or no?
Yeah, it's his new one. It's not part of the Yellowstone, but it is a new one called Landman.
Landman.
Are you familiar with Landman?
Nope. Sounds like a Stephen
King. Okay, if you look it up on IMDb, you can see it's in production now. Awesome. And look at the list of actors they have in this project. And it's pretty amazing that I'm going to be a part of it. But yeah, and this guy, he writes and creates all of this stuff. So he's really a genius, and he's just a good old cowboy from Texas.
Yep.
I mean, using that imagination, it opens doors, like Mr. Hall would say, be magnanimous and be less provincial. And more.
That's the word, provincial. I was going to bring that up earlier, but didn't have the moment. But provincial, I learned that word from him.
I learned it from him.
Yeah, and it sticks with me to not be.
Yeah. Sticks with me. I use it all the time.
Hey, Kambri, tell us more about QED.
On Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah, it's called Show Your Work. Because QED means I've shown my work. I've see above, and we filmed it here, and it was during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I had created a comedy coalition for all the comedy club owners, but also live theater performance venues in New York City because we were closed for 14 months. And I wrote a bill that was passed by the New York State Senate. So that was kind of cool. And I got a like proclamation and all this. Yeah, I did a lot during the pandemic. It was fun times. Show your work on Amazon. My book is Burned Down the Ground. It's been out for a long time, but you can still read it. I won't mind if you read it again too. I love it. I'm proud of it. And Tom Jones is in there.
That's great, Kambri. Thanks. Meredith, Dru, how about you guys?
I will say I have a very strong memory, Dru. You had a scene in the Entourage movie.
The pilot.
And it was.
I was in both. I was in the pilot
and the movie.
Yeah.
And
right.
Your work, it was so good. You were so great. Your timing, it was so great. You were so good.
Is I was actually recast in that. So they had filmed the scene with an old actress, like a really well-known prestigious actress who was like, I don't know, maybe she was like the telephone operator in Greece or something like that. Like you would know who it was. I can't remember now. And just wasn't working. And so the part came along and I auditioned twice for it. And they were like, we like her, but tell her to bring it down. Just play it super straight. She's not the funny one. Drama's the funny one. I was like, okay, fine. So I just played it totally straight. And then I worked with my acting coach on it. She goes, you know what you should do? You should fight with him. So that was like, my acting coach gave me that idea. And I'm like, I ran it by Kevin. I was like, how would you feel about that? And they were like, let's do it. And so that was just so fun. That was such a fun scene and to work with him because he's so all in. Talk about someone who's all in, like he's nuts. Yeah. And it was fun.
One of our previous episodes on this podcast, we were fortunate to sit down with Gary Morris, class of 67, who is well known for crossover hits on both country and pop, but also on Broadway. He's been on TV episodes. He's done a lot of live performances. He's performed at the White House for different presidents, including Carter, Reagan, Bush, both of them, and Clinton and Obama. And then, of course, he's performed at our high school at the pep rally.
He came and performed. I do remember, someone famous. It was super cool.
Well, he had come back for his 20-year high school reunion. So 87, which was our sophomore year. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, our sophomore year. So that's why he was back in town, was for his 20-year reunion. Yeah, that was his number one.
We had him at a pep rally. He was the distinguished alum. We had him at a pep rally. We had him at the football banquet.
That's where I met him.
Got to dance with him and, basically be his date.
Yeah, he had to pick
a woman. And then we had him at the football game on the 50-yard line. He's saying,
blonde.
Exactly. Yeah, I think he's staying at halftime of the football game.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. It was at the football banquet. I was Brad Booth was a senior and he was my sophomore year boyfriend, and Brad took me as his date, and it was a very last minute thing. And so I wore my mom's dress. So I was wearing my mom's dress, and Gary had to pick a girl to dance with, and he picked me, and I was just such a heavy metal headbanger. Stoner. I was so horrified. I don't know how to dance. I still don't know how to two-step or anything. And he had to dance with me to a country song. It was mortifying, and I'm in my mom's dress. It was really surreal. It was surreal.
Now, did he pick you, or did you win the ride?
I know
he
had to
draw your name out of a hat.
Yes, but before that, he had talked to me, picked me out, and then asked the guy next to me what her name was. And then he picked out, and he was going through the tickets on his table. Yeah. So he ran. Yeah.
Then he cherry picked. There, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the Gary I know.
It was mortifying. But it was fun, obviously, clearly stuck with me.
Great guy. Has a huge social media presence and following if y'all want to check him out there.
I'm gonna follow him.
Yeah, listening to your episode with him, Brian, he just seems just so charming and so down to earth and so kind and giving of his time and talent. And that's that's, I think, the makings of what makes someone a superstar, because I've worked with a lot of really, really famous comedians, and the ones that stick with me, and it's like, oh, this is why you're famous, is because they are kind and giving of their time and talent. And Gary clearly has that. Yeah, that concoction.
He does.
So our junior year, we actually went to New York. We had a theater trip to New York that David Michael Hall organized. And I think Scott Ramsey was on it and I was on it. And we went to go see Les Miserables on Broadway. That was the first Broadway show that I had seen. And it was starring Gary Morris. He played Valjean.
Oh, yes.
And it was, were you there?
Everybody came back from that trip singing every song and had all the swag. And Deborah Rumpel and I ran her cassette tape ragged. We had to use a pencil to wind it back up. We had run it out so much.
Y'all brought Broadway back with you for sure.
Yes,
we did.
Yeah.
And we saw Starlight Express that trip also, and I think that's where that came from.
And then you went the next year. My parents went with you.
Yes. Oh, we had so much fun. Although the Les Mis, we saw Les Mis again, and it was not as good. It was actually in not great shape. And Gary really, he was a great Valjean. So, and then like years and years later, Craig Lancaster from the previous year of ours, he actually nominated me to the Hall of Fame. It was right around when Porgy and Bess won a Tony Award. And Gary Morris was in the same class of the Hall of Fame. Gary Morris and Wendy Davis and a bunch of other like really amazing people. But I was like, oh my God, Gary Morris. So I was
and
very
Brian,
much trying not to be girl.
Hats off to, I believe Kambri and Meredith both are distinguished alum and from the class of 1989, along with several others. Our class of 89 has cranked out some talent. Because we may have more distinguished alums from that class that year. You'd have to do some research on it. That would be a good thing to go back and check. But I'm willing to bet we have more distinguished alum than any other, and we're still adding them on.
That's right, Jason. I mean, Kambri, you, and Meredith are both distinguished alumni. So, Dru and Jason, there's still hope for you.
I
don't know. Drew, anytime.
I feel like it might have already shipped, so I don't know. It would have happened.
Wait, didn't we have recently? We were talking about we both had a Lifetime movie thing. Didn't you get a Lifetime movie thing recently? Am I making this up?
Oh yeah, I did one a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Oh gosh, has it been a couple of years already? Jeez, oh my God. But I just remember being like, oh my God, we've got now two 89ers who've had Lifetime Movie Network. There was like a docudrama made up about my life on that. And then you were, yeah.
And that's great. I know coming up pretty soon, we're going to have a podcast that's going to honor our teachers that came out of the class of 89. Some of the graduates that went on to become great school teachers. It's going to be great to do that. So let's talk about teachers for a moment. I want to hear from you. What are some of the teachers that stand out in your memories?
Oh, sure. Well, Mrs. LaCroix, because you and I were on student council, Brian. So Miss LaCroix always will have a special place in my heart. She's taught English, junior English there, and, but really cared about the student body, the senior class officers, and all the kids getting involved in student council because she thought leadership was important and that it mattered. And I couldn't agree more. And it still matters today. We need good leaders. And so student council was something that really shaped me. Mr. Hall and Miss LaCroix were the big standouts, but then also, several of the coaches. I played football for a little while. Several of the coaches were very inspiring. They weren't the best in the classroom, but they definitely could impart some knowledge to you, on the football field. And then, there were certain teachers here and there that just would surprise you and start to talk to you about things like, oh, I don't know how to get through college. I always appreciated those teachers that were talking about the future outside of Richland, what our next steps were going to be, because I didn't feel like, everybody was really focused on that. A lot of us were just trying to survive and get through it. But yeah, I think they put more emphasis on college in the high school setting today than they did back then. Mm-hmm. Back then, once you got out, unless you had a sibling that had already gone on, or your parents were really big on, drilling it into you, you went to college and it truly was a different world. I mean, and you were either going to sink or swim. So, but the teachers, we had great clubs. The German club was a big deal at Richland with Coach Kraus. And and Mike Fritz and Dale Henserling, and Jolene Armstrong. These people loved us in their own way, even when they were giving us licks with the paddle. They loved us.
Pretty sure that's illegal today.
Yeah. It's so different today. You're talking about a time when I had everyone's phone number memorized in my head, and we used answering machines and landlines and payphones, and we didn't need all these screens and things that we have now, and somehow we made it through. And
happier.
Yeah.
We only had 4 TV channels back then, like CBS, ABC, NBC, and Fox was new at the time. And we did okay back then with just 4 TV channels. We didn't have all the things we have today. So back to teachers again. Meredith, how about you? Any teachers stand out for you?
I would say this, the Eklunds, both Mr. and Mrs. Eklund were just stellar, amazing teachers. And I often feel like I didn't give them my best in their class, but they were patient. About 10 or 15 years ago, I had a wild hair and actually found a word wealth book and bought word wealth. And that was something that Mrs. Eklund had in her class. And every now and then I'll just go in and look at different words and like, do I know that word still? Do I know that word? So they were really wonderful, wonderful teachers. And
yeah, Mrs. Eklund was definitely, she knew something was wrong in my family life, but she didn't know what. And so she would single me out for special projects. Like she knew I'd been in the theater department. And so she had me do an analysis of a play that was completely not part of our curriculum, but she would have me get up and present it to the class. And she gave me my senior thesis was about a feminist bent to it, and so I appreciated that she knew something was up and she didn't necessarily want to get personal with me, but she made her own efforts. What'd you say, Dru?
Kept you engaged.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. She kept me engaged. And then Mr. Tillery, I was such a math nerd. I named my club QED for what you put at the bottom of your geometry proofs, quadrant demonstrandum. So I named a comedy club after a math thing. But Mr. Tillery and I had a lot of laughs, and we played pranks on each other. And I ended up getting all the class, and I know Karen was in my class, and I had them all donate money, $1 here, 50 cents there, or whatever. And I used a whole paycheck from my days at Malibu Grand Prix, and whatever contributions I got from everybody else. And I got him a brand new briefcase, which now in retrospect, I'm like, that's such a personal gift. I would not want someone to pick out my briefcase, but he took it and was like really touched by it. But he meant so much to me that I spent a whole paycheck and I rallied all these people because he was turning like 50 or 60. He had like a big number birthday coming up or something. So yeah, Mr. Tillery, who I believe has passed, and then the Eklunds for sure. And of course, David Michael Hall.
Oh yeah. So Dru, how about you?
Well, yeah, I'll never forget walking into 7th grade Lexi Glenn's. What did we call it then? It wasn't drama. Did we call it drama?
Speech.
Speech. It was speech,
oh, yeah.
But it was drama. And she just gave us the freedom to I would go crazy in improv in there, just do the craziest stuff. I'm like, I was free. I'd found my place. I'd found myself. And then to bring that and then learn the discipline with it in high school, I'm just so grateful to both those teachers, Lexi Glenn and David Michael Hall. Very, very blessed. I loved the Eklunds too. Mr. Eklund, I can still be in having that aha moment when he was like, yeah, for you Americans that take baths, you're sitting in your own dirty water. I still feel guilty every time I take a bath. I got to rinse off after.
I wish I knew how much I loved history when I was in his class, because I am
the Tocqueville. Remember the book, The Tocqueville?
Mm-mm. Wait, what?
I'm probably saying it wrong, but it was like that main book that he would reference.
Oh, yeah. I'm such a huge history buff now. And I spend my very few free hours researching and reading and visiting historical places and about historical events and stuff. I'm so mad that I didn't know then how great history is, how important it is, how engaging and interesting it is, and how connected we are to it. It always felt so far away, you know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be hard for a teacher in high school to teach history. Certain ones can do it, though, where they can relate it to what you need to know today and how it connects.
So did y'all know that Snow White and Paul Shuga set up a scholarship fund in his name?
Oh, wow. No. Yeah.
Yeah, and they both were given a distinguished alum at the same time. It's like a double distinguished alum for that. So there is a Rolf Eklund Scholarship Fund at Richland High School still today.
Cool.
Wow, what a beautiful life.
Set up by 89ers.
Love it.
That's great. You know, Dru, in the first part of our discussion, you mentioned that one of the things you remember most about being in drama was the warm-ups, the things we would do before we would even get on stage, where we have David Michael Hall put on music, and it was always the Faith album, which was the big album at the time. I think it won Best Album of the Year at the Grammys that year. So I'll never be able to hear that song again without having those memories of our senior year and thinking about Faith and all the George Michael songs.
Brian, at the last reunion, Devin Lee came and sang Faith a cappella to the entire class.
Ah!
Really?
Yeah. Yes. It was beautiful.
Wow.
I'm sure some of our classmates would have rather it been Leonard Skinnard, but still, it was badass.
Man.
Yeah.
Hear Devin sing it.
Very cool.
Devin is a Texas treasure now with his guitar and his voice and his self-taught style and his work ethic. He has really put a lot in, and he once said that I inspired him in high school to get into acting and to take that path. And I would say now he inspires me to keep up with it and work with his work ethic. So thank you, Devin Lee Steinsultz.
My ninth grade banquet date, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he was
who
a
used more
scene partner
hairspray
with me. I forget.
Between the two of you, who had more hairspray in their hair that day?
Hello, I was the winner.
No.
It doesn't matter.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Devin.
Well, Devin probably did.
me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Aquanet.
Yeah, Devin had a big wave of hair that went up like that at the top.
Yeah.
Like that.
He had punk rock hair. He had like new wave hair. He was wore like Converse and skateboarded for anybody did.
And you remember the big movie was Top Gun, and Devin thought he was Val Kilmer. I mean, he could do the Iceman. He could do the whole Iceman. And so he and I would always do this bit where I would, say something Tom Cruise would say to him, and then he would come back with the Iceman line, Oh. I mean, and Andy thought he was a ninja, so we did a lot of Kung Fu, made a lot of Kung Fu movies.
I remember those.
Even when we were traveling for the shows. Yeah. And then, of course, later, now he really does take Kung Fu. I mean, he's like a black belt or something. So that's his side. That's like something he does that's artistic, that he does.
That's not, your side, whatever. How did you describe it, Dru?
Well, find your side hustle. Something.
Side hustle.
That's good.
Hustle that'll keep you busy during the downtimes. You can make money off of.
For your mental health too. Just for your mental health. Like for skating, for me, like I can't use a cell phone on the ice, and no one calls me, and none of the people who ice skate with me know anything about theater or comedy. They don't care about any of that. They want to know about what skates I'm using and what moves I'm working on. Yeah, same with watercoloring, and I've sold a bunch of my watercolors too. I taught myself watercoloring just a few years ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And one of my paintings was turned into, actually 2 years in a row, 2 of my paintings were turned into a flag that flew over Rockefeller Center. So find your side hustle. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
You never know where it'll lead.
That is so cool.
And it makes you a more interesting person.
Yeah, right. Talk about the same thing all day, every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of talking, I could talk to you guys forever and ever. It's been great catching up with you. I'm looking forward to the reunion, and we kept it.
July 20th, we'll have to pick it back up.
That's a perfect idea, Kambri. Thank you so much. July 20th, we're all going to be there, hopefully. And Jason, what do you know about this venue? I haven't been there yet. Maybe you're still there in the DFW area. What can you tell us about the place where it's going to be? Hearsay, I think?
Yeah, I think everyone would be very, very pleased. It's going to be a different type venue, very, laid back and casual. I've been to every reunion, I'm proud to say.
I went to the last one.
I went to the 20.
Each one is better than the last, so I expect great things from this. Karen Laird does an outstanding job with the committee. They put a lot of love into it. They are very respectful, of all of our, current and past classmates, and it's just a really good time. And we'll have a nice view of the old ballpark, and you can walk across the street to the new ballpark and to the Texas Live and to all the things Arlington has to offer in the way of accommodations. Fort Worth is just a few minutes this way. Dallas is just a few minutes that way. And, it'll be a good opportunity to come. And, like we were saying, our class is so big, Kambri.
It's so big.
That every time I go, I seem to make a connection with somebody that I never really was connected to in high school, but we end up keeping in touch. And, I learn a lot. And this is back to good advice, just staying in contact or making new contacts is such a big deal in today's world. So, yeah, going to these reunions has really paid dividends for me. It reminds me of how proud I am to be from where I'm from. I mean, I just think it's the sky's the limit of what we can do with this stuff as we continue to age and grow. But I'm not
aging. I don't know what you're talking about.
I just mean, like a fine wine.
Grandparents and aging. Kick him off this Zoom.
There's
what the hell? Who let this guy in?
Not me, but that I know of. But no, it's a fun time. I guarantee you will have fun if you come to the reunion, and I'll be there. So.
That's right.
Mr. Richland High School.
Yeah, that's right.
Dru, Jason, Kambri, Meredith, thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been great catching up with you, and look forward to seeing you at the reunion.
Thank you so much for putting all this together.
Yeah,
yes,
no kidding.
Brian. Good job.
Mark that calendar, July 20th, Hearsay in Arlington. It's about 14 weeks from now, so if you got your tickets already, great. If you don't have your tickets yet, it's not too late. Get your tickets. If you want to click on the link inside the podcast description, you can use a PayPal account or contact Ellen or Karen for alternative payment methods. And also visit us on Facebook for more information too about the reunion. Can't wait to see you there. Until next time, for the pre-reunion countdown podcast, this is Brian Kirk.